You say you want innovation, you say you want diversity, you even say you want people who think out of the box. And yet, how often do you reject a perfectly qualified candidate with this simple phrase, they are just not the right culture fit? Now, it sounds harmless, even professional, but in reality, it's often code for something else. Now, this might sound harsh, but the term culture fit has become an acceptable way for HRs to say, they're not like us. HR's most acceptable way to mask bias. And the worst part, you have convinced yourself it's good hiring. Hi, I'm Sanjeevni Saikya from Bented Circle, and today I am going to challenge that thinking and expose how culture fit quietly protects sameness and shuts the door on diversity and uniqueness. Let's start with what does culture fit even mean? Usually, it means, will they agree with same things I do? Would I want to grab a coffee with them? Or worse, are they really like me? Well, that is not hiring. That's actually mirroring. And here's what makes it even more dangerous. When you start hiring candidates for similarity and their ability to fit in, you unknowingly start closing the door on people who are different. Not different in ability, but different in background, different in perspectives and personality. However, there's a cost to closing that door. You see, companies that lack diversity don't just look the same. They pretty much think the same. And thinking the same over time leads to stagnation. And you know what? I really have data to prove my point. A report by McKinsey showed that companies with diverse teams outperform their peers by 36% in profitability. Isn't that wonderful? And yet, most hiring managers still gravitate towards the familiar. Why? Because familiarity feels safe. It's easier to hire someone who reflects a team than someone who reshapes it. But if every new hire looks like your last, are your company really building culture or just replicating it? Think about this for a moment. If everyone you hire thinks like you, talks like you, and works like you, who's challenging your blind spot? Who is giving you a different perspective? Innovation does not come from those echo chambers. It comes from discomfort. It comes from friction and new perspectives. It comes from tension, disagreement, and unexpected insights. But if you're still thinking, what's the harm in looking for culture-appropriate candidates only? Well, think again, because this is how it's going to cost you. You get groupthink instead of problem-solving people. You get faster agreement, but make wrong decisions. You get culture that's pretty consistent and a culture that never really grows or improves. And here's how the data backs this up. A Boston Consulting Group study found that companies with more diverse management teams had 19% higher revenue from innovation. Meanwhile, homogeneous teams were more prone to strategic blind spots, slower responses to market shifts, and higher turnover among underrepresented groups. Now, this isn't just a DEI issue, it's a business risk and a grave one. So, let me tell you what's the alternative. Now, instead of hiring for culture fit, hire for culture add. Ask yourself these 3 things when hiring your next candidate. What new perspective does this person bring? How will they challenge our current ways of thinking? And what values do they align with? Not habits, not hobbies, but values. Because the goal of hiring shouldn't be comfort, it should be growth. Here, you can actually take example from Satya Nadella. When Nadella took over as CEO of Microsoft, he fostered a culture of learn it all over know it all. He prioritized appreciating the efforts of his team and championed values like empathy and a growth mindset. Nadella, in fact, publicly celebrated these behaviors. That's the mindset shift I'm talking about here. So, don't hire someone just because they already know your way of working. Hire someone because they'll push you to learn a better one. Then upgrade your old interview questions. Instead of those vague, tell me about yourself prompts, use targeted questions tied to specific criteria and score responses against a clear rubric. And structure matters too. Studies show that structured interviews where every candidate is asked the same question and scored consistently can reduce bias up to 81% compared to informal ones. Now, most importantly, ensure you have a diversified interview panel. Because when the decision makers all think or lead the same way, bias doesn't just sneak in, it pretty much walks in confidently. Now, the term culture fit is well on its way to becoming a comfort blanket. But comfort isn't what builds great teams. Conscious, inclusive choices do. So the next time you hear someone say they just weren't a good fit, ask yourself, fit for what? Fit for whom? That question could change everything. Now, if this video made you think, like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Let's build workplaces where everyone belongs, not just those who blend in. Thanks for watching. Until then, see you next time.